All right, let's crank this thing up. สวัสดีครับคุณสบายดีไหม
สวัสดีครับผมสบายดีครับขอบคุณที่ถามแล้วคุณล่ะสบายดีไหม
All right, so today I want to talk about Web2 and Web3, combining the two. Now, let's talk about so you're a Web2 company, and you have all these achievements and milestones from like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, shit, maybe even 30 years ago. You know, let's say you got your Web2 fan base is way bigger than your Web3 fan base. You know, it's so easy to get into this Web3 stuff because all you have to do is, press a few buttons and you really think you did some shit. I wouldn't take it that far, but you gotta have a dev, this, that, and a third. But so let's just talk about from now this company got more Web2 than Web3 users because Web3 is a little whatever. But for the Web2 side, like now let's say millions and billions or whatever you got going on, and now create a whole stock, like you provide the opportunity to own stocks within your company, and you can now you can back the blockchain, buy the stocks, and you can back the stocks by the blockchain. So can you give me like a scenario, like tying that all together? Like I know I shotgun you and gave you a lot, but I got some more to say after that, but I just want to hear your opinion.
Absolutely, let's break it down. So if we're looking at this in a professional light, you've got a well-established Web2 company with decades of achievements and a large existing user base. Now you're essentially layering a Web3 component on top of that, and the idea is to marry the two worlds in a way that leverages both. So for example, you could introduce a kind of tokenized stock system where the existing Web2 users can buy into stocks of your company, but those stocks are somehow recorded or mirrored on the blockchain. That means you can use the blockchain to verify ownership of those shares, and you can also use those shares as a way to integrate.
But no. We want to stay. But these are Web2 people. They don't. The blockchain. Like we have to separate them. Like you need to go through the government and become a publicly tradable company on accepted stock exchanges, like just the same way you do the blockchain side. You have to draw the line, and if you cross it, then you on this side. Draw the line, cross it, you on this side. You see what I'm saying? There can't be tokenized stocks. That's stupid. You might as well just have NFTs. We need the government, like USA, all these up NASDAQ, all these high end and popular stock exchange and firms and blah, 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 blah. But this is a Web2 company that's been known by, and amassed billions of customer and dollar, all kinds of nonsense. So you should have way more than enough ammunition, to hold down the fort if you want to do this side of what I'm talking about. Now, can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely, I see what you're getting at. So let's keep it nice and formal and just lay it out this way. You're essentially talking about maintaining a very clear separation between what we might call the traditional financial world, your Web2 company going public on something like NASDAQ, and the newer blockchain-enabled world. In other words, if you're aiming to have your company be publicly traded in the conventional sense, you'd be going through all the standard regulatory channels, working with government regulations, and listing on established stock exchanges. In that scenario, there's no need to blur the lines with tokenized stocks if you don't want to. You can keep your blockchain initiatives purely separate. Maybe you have a separate product line or a separate division that deals with NFTs or blockchain features for a different audience, but the core public-facing company on the Web2 side remains traditionally structured, traditionally listed, and traditionally regulated.
So it would make more sense for you to have stocks and go that route than to do NFTs and have a coin, right? I mean, I understand that you're trying to, or you're trying to do something new, but let's be serious. If you have billions of people over here and you only got 700 over here, wouldn't it make more sense to provide value to the greater, mass or whatever, and then just come back when you got everything figured out and, handle the the smaller situation? I mean, we're going granted off the Because like if it's really that big of a problem within the billions of people, you should be able to find somebody to network with to make your whole situation easier. Versus if you go over here with these 700 people, you probably just like you and these 700 people are just like exchanging money and ideas, and it's not really going too far. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I understand your point, and let's keep it professional and straightforward. From a formal business perspective, it certainly makes sense to focus on where the larger audience is. If you already have a massive established Web2 customer base, then focusing on traditional stocks and going the route of a public offering on a conventional exchange might indeed be the more logical step, especially if your goal is to tap into that larger mass of customers who are already comfortable with traditional financial mechanisms. In other words, you
My bad. Go ahead. Keep going.
No problem at all. So just to wrap that up in a professional tone, essentially, yes, it can make a lot of business sense to leverage your larger Web2 audience first by going the traditional public route. Then, once you have that foundation solidly in place, you can always layer in the Web3 elements for a smaller, more niche segment of your community. That way you're providing value to the larger mass first, and then bringing in the newer, more innovative elements once you've got everything else stable.
I mean, if I had, I don't know. I don't want to go too much further into detail, but, there's, say you're a Web2 company and you're on the blockchain now, and like you keep bringing up achievements from 20, 30 years ago, but you're not doing anything to like for the future. Like what is the point of you making those comparisons? I made a comparison earlier, like if like you're talking about a company made $10 billion like 30 years ago when you didn't even work for them, and now you're using it as bragging rights to try to pump your meme coin, but it's not even working. It's the same thing as saying like, oh, in America, we won World War II, but you weren't there to fight it. So why are you even bringing it up? How's that going to help you do anything you got going on right now and in the future? Like, you understand the reference I'm trying to make between these situations?
Absolutely. I understand the analogy you're drawing. And to put it in a formal professional tone, essentially what you're highlighting is that resting on past laurels or historical achievements doesn't necessarily translate into current or future innovation. If a company is just referencing what it did decades ago, that may not be very compelling for driving present day value or for engaging a new audience, especially on the blockchain side. In other words, I completely see your point. It's like saying you can't rely on an old victory to win a new game. If you're trying to do something forward-looking, like introducing a meme coin or a new blockchain element, then the focus really should be on what you're doing right now and how you're innovating for the future rather than just leaning on old accomplishments.
No, you're 100% right about that. Yeah, trying to win a new game with old strategies is not going to work, because now you're playing against new players like me, and I'm not using old strategies. So the old way might have been to handle it this way, but now you're fighting a new enemy, or you're coming up against a new outcome, and like those old ways are not going to work. And if they do, I don't know how long they'll work for, because all I have to do is see what you do, then pivot, and then I'll just go this way. But you're too stagnant and you're too top heavy to do anything about it, so you just get stuck in the past.
Exactly, and that's a really solid way to frame it. In a professional sense, it's all about agility and adapting to the new landscape. If a company is still using old strategies to try to compete in a space that's evolving rapidly, like the blockchain or Web3 space, then they risk being outpaced by newer, more nimble players, like yourself, who are ready to pivot and innovate. In other words, it's exactly that idea. You can't win a new game by just relying on what worked decades ago. The landscape is different, the players are different, and the strategies have to evolve. So your point is well taken. Staying flexible and forward-looking is key, and that's really the best way to stay relevant in a rapidly changing environment.
All right, so since I cut this on to right now, give me like a summary of everything we talked about, and then what if we were going to put this on YouTube, what would you title this video?
Of course, let me sum it up for you. In essence, we talked about the difference between relying on old Web2 era achievements versus adapting to new Web3 realities. We discussed the idea that if you have a large traditional audience, it might make more sense to focus on conventional methods like stocks and public offerings first, and then layer in Web3 innovations later. And we also talked about how old strategies won't necessarily win new games because you need to be agile and forward-looking to stay relevant in a changing landscape. If we were putting this on YouTube, a suitable title might be something like Adapting Your Web2 Company for a Web3 World, Why Old Strategies Won't Win New Battles. That kind of captures the essence of what we covered.
I like it. I like it. All right, you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll call you back later. Laupoka Mai.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. I'm glad you liked it. You have a great rest of your day too, and just reach out anytime.
Yeah, so she was pretty much confirming stuff that, you know, I fucking hypothesized, and, you know, there's still more we can talk about. I just don't want to go down the rabbit hole all in one video. I'm talking about this shit on the timeline as well. Like, motherfuckers gotta adapt. You gotta fucking adapt. Like, this tokenized streaming, tokenize this, tokenize that, over here, over there, under there. Like, you gotta be there. You gotta go there. You gotta go to where the people are at. If you over here and they're over there, what's that gonna do for me or you? You know what I'm saying? So, gotta figure it out. Man, I'll see you on the next one.